All right, today is our last lesson of the year. We just got to get through this 12.3, and then we're on the home stretch towards exams, towards your project, all that good stuff. Our last topic for this unit is frequency tables and histograms. Both of these things will appear in your final project, so we need to know how to do both of them. This first thing over here off to the left, that is an example of a frequency table. In this example, during the school year, all the Algebra 2 teachers gave their classes a 40-question practice ACT assessment, and then they tallied up the scores for their students. So this is like one teacher, they tallied up the scores for their classes. Note, this table is not telling us the specific scores for each student. It's giving us a range of their values. So for example, how many students scored between a 1 and a 10? There's 3 tally marks. That means 3 students are in that range. So on and so forth. If we look at the bottom, the upper end of our students, who scored between a 31 and a 40. There's 6 tick marks there. So this is giving us kind of a general idea of how these students scored. If we think about each one of these as as percentages, so like 1 to 10 out of 40, that's like your 25% range, your 50% range, so on and so forth. So it's giving us kind of an idea of how they're doing, but not of specific values. This, again, is called a frequency table. It groups data into what we call intervals. And it shows us the frequency for each interval. Okay, usually when we make a frequency table, we then also make what we're going to talk about later, which is called a histogram to go with it, to represent this data. So we are going to start by creating our own frequency table and then later on a histogram. To create our own frequency table, we're going to look at the set of values right here. The most important part about our frequency tables is that we need to make sure that our intervals that we choose are not too big, not too small, they're not uneven. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to represent our data accurately, and it's not going to visually look the way it's supposed to. The set of data we're going to look at is a bunch of students were surveyed, and they reported how many hours they spent watching Netflix per week. So that all of their data is reported there. I believe there's 15 students that reported data. Yeah, 15 students reported data. Okay, so just like we do for every other table graph that we've done so far, the first thing we're going to do is order our data from least to greatest. So let's go ahead and do that right now, starting with 0. We are ordering our data right now. Double check, make sure you ended up with the same amount that you started with. So I started with 15. I should have 15 now in order, which I do. We're good to go there. Everybody got your data in order? Now, we need to figure out the minimum and the maximum. The minimum here is 0, and the maximum here is 22. Not rocket science here. You'll look at the smallest number, you'll look at the biggest number. Okay. Now that our data is in order, we know the maximum and the minimum. Now we're going to divide our data into equal intervals. Usually about 4 to 5 intervals is what we like to do. It's kind of up to you. My table here has room for 4 intervals, so I'm going to do 4 intervals. It's kind of up to your personal preference on the homework. Maybe it'll tell you, maybe it'll have a specific amount for you to do, whatever. To do this, we take the maximum and the minimum values. We're going to subtract them to find the difference. So I'm going to do 22, the maximum, minus 0, the minimum, and then divide it by the number of intervals that you want. So I want 4 intervals. I'm going to divide that number by 4. You can do this all in one step in your calculator. 22 minus 0 is 22. 22 divided by 4 is 5.5. Okay. Everybody good with that? Now, as a rule, we want to make sure that our intervals actually cover everything in our graph. So I am going to always, whether this is a decimal, whether this is a whole number, I'm always going to round up to the next whole number. So a 5.5, this is going to become 6 because I always round up. If that was exactly 5, I would still round up to 6 because I want the next highest whole number. Okay, that's going to make sure that my intervals are the correct size. Then, I'm going to start with my minimum value. In this case, my minimum value is 0. That does not mean we always have to start with 0. You start with whatever the minimum value is. If the minimum value is 11, you start with 11. My minimum value is 0. And then, I know this sounds ridiculous. I seriously count on my fingers every single time I do this. I'm going to count on my fingers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 0 to 5. Because that doesn't look like an interval of 6 to me. That looks like an interval of 5. So if you're just like, I'm going to go 0 to 6, your interval is going to be wrong. Count on your fingers. I know it sounds silly, but it helps. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then, my next interval is not going to start at 5. I already did 5. My next interval is going to start at 6. And then I'm going to count on my fingers again. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. My next interval should start at 12. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. My next interval should start at 18. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Notice, it's not stopping at my maximum value, is it? I still counted 6 out exactly like I should. It does not stop just because I've already reached my maximum. And then I only did 4 intervals, so I don't need this last space. Does everybody understand how I just counted out those intervals? That's the trickiest part of this lesson. And on your project, I'm going to be paying attention to whether your intervals are accurate. Okay. So let's make our frequency table and let's make our histogram. So our frequency table, the first thing that we need to do is label these 2 sections of my frequency table. The first side, the left side, that's going to be my intervals. My intervals represent number of hours. Those were 0 to 5, 6 to 11, 12 to 17, and then 18 to 23. Now, I'm going to go back up here for a second. Our frequency table has tick marks. We are not doing exact values here. I am tick marking the number of students that fall within each interval. So the number of students who fall between 0 and 5 hours. The number of students who fall between 6 and 11 hours. So this side is number of students. And then I'm literally going to tally these up. I'm going to look at my original data. It's nice because it's already in order for me. And I'm going to count how many fall between 0 and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fall between 0 and 5. So that should get 6 tally marks. I'm going to do the same thing between 6 and 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 students fall between 6 and 11. Between 12 and 17, 1, 2, 3. And then between 18 and 23, I only had the 1. That's our frequency table. Any questions? Now we're going to take that frequency table and we are going to represent it graphically as what we call a histogram. Histogram is a fancy word for a bar graph. Have we all seen a bar graph before? Hopefully. The way that we're going to do this is we're going to split our bar graph into our 4 intervals. Okay, so we're going to take our histogram space where we're going to put our histogram. The first thing I need to do is I need to name my histogram. This histogram, what is it representing? It's representing the number of hours spent watching Netflix. All right, not only does my histogram need a title, it also needs labels on all of the sides. So on the bottom is where we're going to put our intervals. And our intervals are representing hours. I'm going to split this the best I can. I know I need 4 of them, so I'm going to split it into 4 equal pieces here. And I'm going to label 0 to 5 hours. 6 to 11 hours, 12 to 17 hours, and 18 to 23 hours. Then I need to label the side as well. It's going to be the same. It's going to match this frequency table. So if I have hours, then I also have number of students. And it only goes up to a 6. So I just need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Got all of our labels? The one rule for our histograms is that I want the bars to all be the same width and they need to touch each other. So the sides of the bars should be touching. So the first one from 0 to 5, it's going to go all the way up to 6. So there's the first bar. From 6 to 11, that should only go up to 5. So that's going to go up to here. From 12 to 17, that's going to go only up to 3. Oops. So again, they're all kind of the same width. They should all be touching on the sides. And then lastly, 8 to 23 only had the 1. That's my histogram. Any questions on that? We think we could do that on our own, hopefully. All right, flip it over. So we have 3 different ways to describe our histograms. So those 3 terms are uniform, which is this one on the left here. Uniform is when they are all the same height or roughly the same height. They might not look exactly straight across, but they're essentially straight across. That's uniform. Symmetric just means that it's the same if I split it halfway. So in this example of symmetric, the top is like in the center. So they rise toward the center. You might also see something that's symmetric going this way, where it's higher on the ends and lower in the middle. As long as it's symmetrical about halfway through, you can call it symmetric. And then the last one is called skewed. We've seen this term used before. Skewed either means it kind of looks all over the place. Like we see how this graph kind of is a little wonky. Skewed could also mean that it's really high in one category and then like super low in the rest of the categories. Either going that way, or it could look like this, where it's super high over here and then kind of drops off. Okay, so if it's skewed, that either means all over the place, maybe it's pushed all to one side, maybe it's just like, you know, a steep incline or a drop off or something like that. That's what skewed is. Okay, so we're going to do another example. The first thing we start with is putting all of my data points in order. So let's go ahead and take these data points. This is the number of instant messages sent by students in 1 hour. Okay, so let's go ahead and do all of those in order. I'm going to do my best here. I'm going to do it up here. 0, 0, 1. Oh, there's 3 ones. There's 3 2s as well. 1, 2, 3. There's 1 3. There's 1 5. Oops. There's a 7. All right, there's my data points in order. Everybody got them? Hopefully. I always like to double check that I have the same amount that I started with just to cover my butt. We're all good there? The minimum value is 0, the maximum value 49. We usually use about 4 to 5 intervals. This time my table has enough room for 5 intervals, so I'm going to go with 5 intervals. And then does anybody remember how we calculate what our intervals should be? Jaden. Perfect. Maximum minus minimum, 49 minus 0, divided by the number of intervals I want, so divided by 5. That's going to get me about 9.8. I always round up, whether that said 9, 9.8, 9.99, I'm rounding up to a 10. All right. So my frequency table, I want on the left side number of messages. And then on the right side, number of students. My intervals are going to start with whatever this minimum value is. Okay, whether that minimum value is 0 or 11, it doesn't matter. That's what we're starting with. And then again, I know it sounds silly. I'm counting on my fingers because this interval does not go 0 to 10. This interval goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then I got to be careful. The next interval starts at 10, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Hopefully you can kind of see what this pattern is going to look like here. This one just ended up being pretty nice. There we go. Again, I know counting on your fingers is like, Miss Lisa, we're not in first grade anymore, but it helps. Okay, and then to finish it off, we are then going to put our tally marks in. So I'm going to tally up everything between 0 and 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Everything between 10 and 19. 1, 2, 3. Everything between 20 and 29. 1, 2, 3. Everything between 30 and 39. 1, 2. And then everything between 40 and 49, which is also 2. There's our frequency table done. For our histogram, it needs a name first. So let's call this instant messages per student. Or something like that. I guess it should be capital. My intervals are going to go on the bottom. So that's going to be number of messages. I have 5 of them. So let's see if we can split my graph into 5 sections. That's close enough. So 0 to 9. 10 to 19, 20 to 29, 30 to 39, and 40 to 49. And then up the left side, this should be our number of students. It matches our frequency table. And we're just going to count by ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right. We got to make sure we do two things. Our bars need to be the same width, and they need to touch each other on the sides. So I'm going to start with the 11. 0 to 9, there's 11 of them. 10 to 19, there's 3 of them. 20 to 29, also 3. Oops, that was supposed to be green. Oh no, that was supposed to be green. There we go. 30 to 39, only 2. And then 40 to 49, also 2. What type of relationship does this histogram display? Look at the top of your notes. What would we call that? Uniform, skewed? Chaz? Yeah, that's skewed. It's skewed way to the bottom. Okay, it's not uniform because they're not all the same. It's not symmetrical because it's not the same on either side. We would call this skewed. Okay, let's say I did want it to be symmetrical. What would I have to add in order for this to be symmetrical? Let's split it down the middle. Which category, which interval would I have to add something to make it symmetrical? What would need a ton more responses if I wanted this to be symmetrical on both sides? Yeah, if I wanted it to be symmetrical, I would need to add a bunch over here so that it would be the same on both sides. So we could just say right here, 40 to 49. That's it. Any questions?